everyone, good morning. I'm Ha from Endeavor Vietnam and welcome to EndeavHER, the thrift shade of branding. EndeavHER is a program that supports, elevates, and helps female founders accelerate the growth of their companies and inspire the next generation of female founders all over the world. This is actually our third installment this year. This event is brought to you by Endeavor Asia Pacific, which includes 6 Endeavor offices in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, the Philippines, Japan, and Vietnam. Endeavor is a mission-driven global organization leading the high-impact entrepreneurship movement. We would like to take a moment to thank our partners for the Women Foundation, BusinessWorld, Buttonscarves, Girls Beyond, Plus, Wanita Wirausaha Femina, Block 71, Foodizz, and Stella Women. We are currently streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So if you have any comments or any question you may have for our panelists, we'll do our best to get to them. Just comment in those platforms. With further ado, let me call you on our moderator this morning. She's a founding partners of Pacific Investment and Innovation Capital Fund and a member of Endeavor Global. Everybody, please welcome Veronica and Serra. Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you. Have fun.
Hi, Veronica.
How are you? It's a big pleasure to be here. Very honored for this invitation. I'd like to say that this is a very exciting time for the APAC region, and particularly for me to see that there's so many women leading entrepreneurs in the region, innovating and using technology in a unique way. Congratulations for Endeavor for putting together this very interesting panel. So to start with, I think today it would be great if we could briefly have our panelists who I'd be moderating making a brief introduction of themselves. Just to give you an overview, I'm going to give each of them around 5 minutes to say hello and to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about how they started their business and where they are today. And then we're going to deep dive into branding. There are many interesting topics around branding, personal branding, company branding, employer branding that we're going to cover. And then we're going to open up as soon as possible for a Q&A, so we have a very dynamic interaction with everyone participating as much as we can. Yeah, so why don't we go after this sort of overview of what we're going to do, why don't we start by Ankiti from Zilingo. Ankiti, could you tell us briefly about your business and talk about where you are today?
Hi, Veronica. Hi, everyone. Very good morning and super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So my name is Ankiti and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Zilingo, which is a B2B fashion sourcing startup. We launched the company back in 2015. And back then we actually started as a platform that was providing tools to merchants to sell online better, because what we saw was that, you know, in different parts of the world, in China and India and the US, you know, there was a lot of advancement in technology to help merchants sell online. And we knew that that would happen in Southeast Asia and other parts of South Asia as well. As we kept on going in our journey, and by 2017, one thing was very clear to us, that while a lot of capital and talent and product and engineering was happening to get the product from merchants and brands to the end consumer, there was just so much amazing innovation in that space to get the product from the brand to you, delivered into your house, how you discover it, how the logistics work. Just amazing data science, absolutely amazing branding, absolutely amazing innovation that was happening in that space. Somehow all of that good stuff, all of that data, all of that marketing excellence, all of that product innovation was not flowing backwards into the supply chain, right? And that's where, and we faced that trouble, right, ourselves, and we really dealt with that when we saw thousands of our merchants struggling with the technology part, on the sourcing side, right? Like, how does a product actually get from its factory or where it was made, or really the raw material source, into the hands of the brand that is selling it to you? And why none of that is digitized? And what happens when you open up innovation, digitization, financing, and marketing for that part, which is basically everything that happens to the product before it ends up in the hands of the brand that's selling to you? So that's how Zilingo in its current form was born. And over the last 4 years, obviously, we've innovated a lot, we've grown a lot, we've dealt with the challenges of COVID. And fashion overall as an industry fell 15%, actually a little bit more than 15% when COVID happened, and it rebounded strongly for the online segments, which are usually our customers whom we help source. And what we realized on the other side is that retail was not just resilient, it was in some ways, the good companies in retail, they were anti-fragile. So something bad happened and we learned from it, we digitized everything. Online actually grew by $100 billion in the midst of all of this COVID. And we find today ourselves as a leading B2B sourcing platform that's not just serving customers in Asia, but also connecting factories in Asia with brands in the US, Europe, South Asia, Middle East, now Australia as well. So it's been quite a phenomenal journey with a lot of ups and downs and interesting turns, in many interesting events. And I think today's topic is super relevant, that in the journey of as tumultuous as a startup journey can be, how do you think about branding? So I'm super excited to be here, Veronica and everybody else.
Ankiti, just give us a couple of numbers just so we understand where you are right now. How many employees do you have? How many people work with you? How many customers do you serve? And if you're open to share, how much is your revenue right now?
Sure. Why don't I? So we do about $1 billion of annualized sales volume, and we have eight different country teams, 500 people in these teams. We have about 5,000 businesses that we serve, and they are distributed across all of Asia on the supply side. So much of our proposition is that we're letting brands source from factories outside of China, especially. So Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and other suppliers in countries like Thailand and Philippines. And the brands that buy from us tend to be those who sell online on their own Shopify stores, Amazon stores, or Shopee stores, and so on. And they tend to be actually pretty global. It started with Southeast Asia, but now we also serve brands that are selling to customers in the US, Europe, Australia, and Middle East.
Got it. Thank you so much. So now let's go to Hande from Insider. Hande, are you there?
Yes, absolutely. I need a very small sound check. Can you hear me well?
Oh, I can hear you very well. Welcome, Hande.
Okay,
Very happy
perfect.
to have you here.
Thank you very much. And good morning from Istanbul. Good morning from Istanbul. I'm joining from Istanbul today. It is very good morning from Istanbul. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just trying to bring my energy together. If I cannot just transmit to you guys, sorry for that. But I'm super energetic and super excited to be here. Endeavor is actually playing a huge role as insiders in international expansion. I think we are in 26 countries now. We have clients from 26 countries. And I think Endeavor is one of the reasons that we are that global. So I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you, Hande. I'm calling actually from Brazil, and here it's 10 past 10, more or less. So this is a proof that we're really a global organization because we're across almost all the continents. Hande, tell us a little bit how you started your company and
Sure.
where you are right now.
Sure.
In terms of not just the size, but your positioning. What areas are you covering, and how does your business really work? We have around 400 people watching us, mostly entrepreneurs from the APAC region. So it's really wonderful to see women leading these incredibly innovative organizations, and very inspiring to hear how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. Actually, all the entrepreneurs in the call will also know that when you ask someone or when you ask an entrepreneur what you do, of course, your answer should be always ready because your pitch always be ready. It might be changed according to the audience, but it should be always there and ready. But when it comes to the Endeavor and the audience of the Endeavor, when it comes to talking about insider in front of the Endeavor event or Endeavor audiences, it's not easy. So that's why I'm going to start with the romantic part, because obviously entrepreneurs are romantic people. And this is why maybe I can start with a very romantic reason that why we have established Insider from the very first place. Well, when you look at the east part of the world, or when you look at the whole world, generally tech companies or marketing software companies are raised from the San Francisco or Silicon Valley or maybe Israel. There are very, very few companies which raised from the east part of the world and became global. So I think inside we have established Insider with this reason. To be honest, we wanted to show whole world that breakthrough product companies can be also created outside of Silicon Valley. And this is why we have started Insider. Insider is a pure software and tech company. By the way, we are 1x entrepreneurs, and when we sold our first business, we were thinking about establishing an e-commerce website or maybe starting another business. So we have decided that this should be the mission of Insider, because there are already a lot of e-commerce companies, a lot of different type of companies. It wasn't only about the success. We are also seeing the very successful examples of the e-commerce companies or the other type of businesses raised from this part of the world, like Ankiti's venture. But it was a very, very actually exceptional reason that we decided to build a product company, which wasn't easy actually, because all the resources are limited, all the informations are limited, and even investing in the SaaS wasn't that popular when we first started when we first started Insider. So this is how the story started actually. I have a very, very interesting fact about Insider. We are 6 co-founders, and most of the time it sounds scary, but it's not. I always believe that if you are like founders sharing the same values in life, then having a more or being more co-founders is a huge advantage. And maybe in this step, it will be good to define what we do as Insider. Actually, it's a marketing software company, B2B SaaS company. We help enterprise marketing teams to unlock growth funnels across the funnel through the acquisition, activation, retention, and the revenue. We deliver personalized experiences in the different channels, including desktop web, mobile app, messaging, ads, and email. So basically, Insider is a platform that combines personalization, insights with the AI and ML and predictive engine at its heart. Currently, we have clients from 26 countries. The company become like 700 people. I am pretty much proud to say that we have 36 nationalities working at Insider, because it's also a great experience for me bringing people from with different backgrounds, different nationalities, different cultures. I think it's one of the best journeys of my life from this perspective. And we are a Sequoia-backed company and closed our Series C almost like a year ago. It was also a very interesting experience because we closed our round in the middle of the COVID. We are still in the middle of the COVID, I think, times, but it was like very hot times that the companies are very sure whether they should continue to invest or not. We have more than 1,000 enterprise clients from all around the world. I can say that we are working with Fortune 500 companies like Unilever, Samsung, and Pfizer, Vodafone, Carrefour, and the others. Regional giants like Digi, Telkomsel, MediaMarkt, or Watsons, or Coles, or also some of the examples of these, regional giants that we are partnering together. And the media, automotive, aviation are some of the other verticals we work actively together. I'm a very, I think, type of person who likes to talk about successes. I generally concentrate on the, challenges, because it means, I think, sharing more about the things that you are being challenged. But today, I would like to share a very also sentimental, I think, reward for me during my career. Last year, I had been selected as one of the top 3 entrepreneurs in the Linda, awards, which was very meaningful to me. And I'm just doing best to be the best marketing software company in the world. And as a last sentence, I would say that being a startup CEO is difficult and challenging. Being a scale-up CEO, I think it's much more challenging. Things are getting much more difficult in time. It's not like it's getting easier. So yes, it's the most challenging. It's the most, I would say, difficult, but it's the most beautiful journeys of my life so far. So I think that's all for now.
Thank you, Hande. That's very emotional and from your heart. Thank you for speaking from your heart to all of us. Let's go now to Vivy. Vivy, are you there from FashionValet?
Hi, guys.
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Vivy. Welcome.
Hande, it's 4 a.m. for you. So much respect for you right now.
She doesn't seem like she's asleep, right? Imagine when she's awake. If she's back when she's asleep, imagine when she's awake.
I was sorry to interrupt. I was talking to Linda a couple of days ago, and then I told the same thing to her. Actually, Endeavor organizations in all different countries has a great energy. I ask, how do you keep this energy? How do you sustain this energy? So this audience always gives me energy. So I'm super energetic. But thank you very much for considering me, Vivy.
Okay, so just a bit about myself. Like, first of all, super happy to be here with you guys. It's 9 a.m., so I'm okay. And being on the same panel as like two amazing kick-ass women CEOs, I'm very honored to meet you guys. I've heard so much about you guys. My name is Vivy. I'm an entrepreneur from Malaysia. I co-founded a company called FashionValet that runs a group of modest fashion brands. We started a decade ago, 2010. Can't believe it's been a decade. And what started off as just a local platform with just 3 people in the team has now morphed into a group of our own brands with more than 300 people in the company. We saw an opportunity in the modest fashion segment in the fashion industry, a lot of gap to be filled there, so much growth potential, and our aim is to become the largest modest fashion group of brands globally. A bit about me.
Sorry, just modest fashion is what? Who are you trying to reach? People more affordable fashion? Is that the?
No, so we have a group of brands. So we have a brand that focuses on premium modest fashion. We have a brand that focuses more on the mass, and I guess we don't define modesty. It's really up to each person, but we just give options for people who want to cover up a little bit more. Predominantly Muslims. Yeah, just a bit about me. What's interesting is that I started off as a blogger more than a decade ago. My blog readers were really the ones who took a chance on me and supported my business when I started in 2010 until today. I love my community. I love social media. I have 1.8 million followers on Instagram, which I'm very active on. And my brands are also very social media driven. I love to write. I love to read as well. And like Hande, I have a romantic story too, but a different one. I actually married my co-founder. And together we have 3 kids, and one more on the way. I'm 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant now. So yeah, we're very productive here.
For the 4th kid.
For the 4th child.
Oh my God, what a hero. Managing a company and the family, that's very tough. I have 3 and I can tell you it's very challenging to.
It's crazy, right? Why do we do it?
Because we can, right? And That's amazing. Sorry I interrupted you.
No worries.
Did you finish?
Yep, that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. So now it's my turn. So they asked me to introduce myself. So I'll do a very brief introduction. So I'm Veronica. I also see myself as an entrepreneur. I was born in Chile, raised in Brazil, lived for a couple of years, lived 4 years in Chile, 5 in the US, and then moved to Brazil. My mom's Chilean, my dad's Brazilian. Spend most of my time in Brazil, except for later in life, except for the MBA, which I did in the US. I was at Harvard Business School. Actually, there I met one of the co-founders of Endeavor back in 2005, Peter Kellner, who co-founded it with Linda. So I got involved with Endeavor really from the inception. When it started, initially they had a small stance in Chile and then Argentina, which became a more sort of really the inaugural Endeavor. Started investing around those years, so back in 97, 98, and actually got involved with entrepreneurs around that time. So it's interesting. And then fast forward, I started my company around the year 2000, Pacific Investments, after I exited my first big exit, which was an Endeavor company called Patagon, which was e-commerce, an e-trade of Latin America, and partnered with those guys who sold and managed a holding company of investments, and then later started Innova, which is really a fund more focused in technology. My investments are, I'd say, all of them are pretty much data driven in one sense or the other. So I've always been investing in companies that have data as a very heavy component. Latest investments, just to give a sense, in the largest food tech business in the region, largest, called iFood, also became an Endeavor entrepreneur, largest anti-fraud business here in the region, called also an Endeavor entrepreneur called ClearSale. And I also was an investor and sat in the board for 9 years in Mercado Libre, and Marcos Galperin is also an Endeavor entrepreneur. I think Mercado Libre is probably the largest market cap of any Endeavor company, because they reached, I don't know, 75, 80 billion dollars in market cap, depending on where the stock is. So I can say that pretty much all of my career I've been involved, not really with investing as I see it, but really in supporting entrepreneurs and helping them grow. And that's why my job is so exciting, because every day really, or every week a couple of times, I'm learning about a new business model, meeting new entrepreneurs. And because of Endeavor in a very big way, it's not only sort of in my region or even in the US, it's really globally. I joined the Endeavor Global Board back in 2016. So in addition to having several roles, helping start Endeavor Brazil and being in the advisory board and all that, I joined the Global Board, so for 5 years right now, which is I'm very honored to be part of, and that is also very exciting. So anyway, that's me. I'm not the focus, you are. So let's get back to these incredible women entrepreneurs who are changing really business practices where you are, because I'm sure that you're leaving your mark in several different ways in the businesses that you're running. Why don't we get into our topic? But before that, I think that one thing that could be very interesting is if we give examples, or if we go into a sort of a practical story, and any of the three of you can pick it up, of how you think, and maybe Vivy, you could start with that because you had a blog, or you have a blog that you're very active in. So your personal branding is something that helped you in a very big way, I suppose, start your business, right? It was sort of a natural extension of what you were doing. People were probably asking, hey, Vivy, where do I buy what you're wearing? Or Vivy, what do you think of something? So you were an influencer first on the branding side. Could you talk about what were some of the challenges of that you faced, and give us an example of that in having you be a brand yourself?
Sure, sure. I feel like this question is really close to home for me because I'm literally the face of the company since day one. Started from my blog, so everybody kind of knew the journey and story of FashionValet as Vivy's journey. They supported me from when I was nothing, and took a chance on me. And what's interesting is they saw the transition, right, from being a student in London to being an entrepreneur, to coming home, being an entrepreneur, starting a business here, then getting married. My customers came to my wedding, and and to have my first child, second child, third child, and now my fourth child. So a lot of being a public figure here, a lot of people see all the ups and downs, the good and the bad, the pretty and the ugly, right? So this company also feels very personal to them. Honestly, this comes with a lot of pros and cons. The pros are great, like it's easier to connect with them, it's easier to shout out new products. When something doesn't sell, they make me wear it. It sells, so it's easier, and reach and access and networking as well is a lot easier, but it comes with a whole string of cons as well. Easier to get attacked. I'm definitely more vulnerable than big corporations, faceless brands, right? My mistakes, whatever mistakes I make, I mean, we're only human, they get amplified. Everybody knows about them. When there's a customer complaint or a late delivery, it gets on my Instagram and everybody can see it. And when I reply to one, I used to do that, I would reply, but then there'll be a string of other, like, oh, check my order, no, my order as well. And I'm like, oh no, why did I open that can of worms? um so you become very accessible to everybody, right? And of course the biggest risk of all is when the business becomes vulnerable to your persona, right? Your ups and downs can affect the business pretty directly. So as much as I've had my fair share of backlash and mistakes, misunderstandings, as much as personal branding is very helpful to the company at the beginning, at the end of the day, I really believe that the company or the brand must be able to grow bigger than the person's personal branding. Must be able to stand on its own 2 feet, especially if you're no longer there, right? I have this brand Duck, that's a premium modest fashion brand here in Malaysia. It's fast growing, and I used to have to model every single collection. So we would save a lot on photo shoots. That's great, but it had to be me, right? And slowly but surely we moved away from that, and I'm pregnant like 4 times, so tired to like model stuff anymore. So I used to have to promote every single Duck item, and new arrivals on my social media. But over the years, now Duck is 7 years old, I don't have to do that anymore. I do it because I want to, right? So that to me is a testament that the brand can stand on its own 2 feet, and that kind of helps me sleep better at night, knowing that my brands can make it with or without me. So yeah, personal branding is great, but you really need to make sure your brand, your company, can do with or without you.
And do you, when you make mistakes, do you come forward and admit and say you're sorry about the mistakes? How do you deal with these mistakes? with your followers?
Yeah. Yes, I think people really value transparency. So when I make a big boo-boo, definitely all eyes are on me to see how I react or what I would say. So over the years, I've learned when to say something and when not to say something. You really don't have to respond to every single thing, because then you become even more vulnerable. And people know that they can dictate you, or they can there's a lot of cyberbullying on social media. I get that a lot daily. I get a lot of issues that snowball into other things. And as you get bigger, people, not everyone likes it. You attract a lot of envy. You're no longer the underdog. You're no longer cute. So you become even more vulnerable. So at some point, you cannot answer to everything. You really have to pick and choose which battles to fight.
Very good. Ankiti, could you talk a little bit about your experience with branding on Zilingo, more on the personal side?
Absolutely. I think my story is a little bit different than Vivy's, but it's been also quite challenging. I was thinking about it as you were speaking, Vivy, that it must be so hard to be you, because whenever something goes right, it's usually not acknowledged, but when something goes wrong, it's amplified in social media, and social media can be quite toxic, right? So I think kudos to you, and kudos to everyone who's taking social media in their stride. It can sometimes, I think, be quite destructive to your own mental health if you don't know what to listen to and what to just flush out of your system. So in our case, of course, we transitioned into a full B2B company. We work with a lot of customers who want to be able to trust a company in Asia that's manufacturing for them, and so on and so forth. In some ways, that was a very big part of our story. But personally, in my case, I think what also happened was, because we had so few Indian women at the fore in startups at the time, maybe 2-3 years ago, a big part of what people organically liked about our story was that it was a true come from nothing story, that if she can do it, then maybe I can too. And honestly, it was not something that we were trying to build around so much. It was just something that resonated, because obviously the challenges of every region, every culture are very specific, and when you see someone do something, it's encouraging. And to that extent, I think, as far as somebody can look at the story and say, this is exciting for me, or this is inspiring for me, it's great. But then what happens next is like what we said, but maybe slightly not so much not in the exact same way, is that when something bad happens, or when you make a mistake, or when something completely outside of your control happens, like COVID happens, right? And you have to make tough decisions with the organization, with reorganization, with layoffs, or with consolidation, and this and that and the other, which are all things that you would be expected to do as a good CEO or as a good leader. But because the human angle of your personality is so exposed and so out there, you are vulnerable to both kinds of opinions. And part of it is because somebody put you on a pedestal where they loved you very much, they obviously now have the right to criticize you. And honestly, that's okay, and I think that's fair, because if you take the love, you have to take the criticism. But at the same time, and I've observed this a lot on social media, and perhaps I'm nowhere close to the kind of stress that it puts on people that are real celebrities or real influencers like Vivy, because repeatedly being given feedback or told something on social media by people who don't know the whole picture can also be sometimes detrimental to the bigger, grander scheme of things. Because at the end of the day, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, your job is to take care of your company, to take care of to keep the lights on, to make sure there is growth, to make sure the customers are happy and satisfied, and the employees and the team is happy and satisfied. So I think this sort of stuff probably just comes with experiences and as you go through these ups and downs. And I think again, like you both said, Veronica and Vivy, it's really important to stay focused on what's important, and be able to really distinguish between those two things, which is, one is all the good stuff that comes from being somebody that has a personal brand of any kind, whether it's a business brand or a personal influencer brand and so on. And then in the tough moments, really know what are the things that you want to hold yourself to, and what are the things that you are okay with being getting flack for us. A big part of this was when we were growing pre-COVID, and obviously online fashion was growing a lot, and our customers were growing a lot, right? So as an enabler behind the scenes, we were also growing with them. And when COVID happened, obviously none of us knew what would happen, right? Net net, I think it was a good thing for most of us. Net net, most of our businesses grew. We grew tremendously by the end of 2020 and 2021. But when COVID started, nobody knew, so we didn't know what was going to happen. And this is like a very specific example, but because there was such a human connection, especially with a lot of women, of color who have come from nothing, and they're trying to do this job or trying to work as a merchant. And we said, look, there's COVID, so we need to increase our pricing. We're going to reduce all our marketing spends. We're going to cut back on all of these expenditures, and we have to focus much more on profitability, and as such, that whole thing worked out. In that moment, a lot of people were not necessarily looking at the strategy objectively, but rather emotionally, and that perhaps only happens because of a personal brand. So I think it's really important, like we said earlier as well, to separate your personal brand and your business, especially if you want your business to continue to grow. And your business might actually benefit from your personal brand in the beginning, but eventually it has to survive, it has to thrive with or without you. So it's been quite a journey, and I think you only learn, from your failures. I think Hande said something like that earlier, right? You only learn from your failures. You don't really learn by talking about successes. And failure is the biggest teacher. And now I think the only other thing I would say is that because we do still need a lot of women of color in positions of power driving companies and so on and so forth. It's okay when the flack comes. I think it's important to grow a little bit of a thick skin, because it's important for us to sustain all of this and still grow and become successful, so that 10 years later there's just so many more of us. Always keep the greater good in mind, I think.
Hande, talk a little bit. You're a role model in your position, not only in your country, but even at Endeavor, right? Talk a little bit of how the branding that you have from this position has influenced the culture of your company.
Very, very good question. Very interesting question. I would say I think the direct effect should be like maybe minimum. I know that the answer is a little bit surprising, because it might sound like that. By the way, thank you very much for calling me as a role model. I don't feel in that way, and I think it's still like a very common entrepreneur sickness, like being a little bit, or having a tendency to feel like an imposter syndrome. So yeah. I never feel myself
playing it.
Yeah, exactly. So I never feel myself like a role model. Even when I wake up in the morning, every morning I am asking this question to myself: whether these great people, whether this company, this hyper growth company, do I deserve this? Do I deserve to be a CEO of this company? So whenever you say like, or someone calls me like a role model, it's like, oh, thank you, but I don't think so. But thank you. So, well, if you allow me, Veronica, I'm going to split Insider's branding story into two. by talking a little bit about the B2B SaaS branding story, because it's not a very common and story in the region. And I would say the second side is the personal one, and its potential or possible effects on the culture and the other things. So for the B2B SaaS, I think the branding and the marketing and all the efforts are pretty much different. And again, it's not a very common practice in the region, in Asia or in the Middle East, because there are very few companies became global as a B2B SaaS company in the region. And the game of building a branding around B2B SaaS is totally different. So there were lots of things to learn. There were lots of things to understand. It's mostly about the event marketing and branding based on the events, branding based on the content itself. So this is one of the, I think, things we learn about building a branding around B2B SaaS, and it's difficult. I wouldn't say it's harder or easier, of course, but it's difficult than building a brand for a B2B, B2C business. And it's not always very positively correlated to spending money or the ads. Yes, of course, ads are always important, but for a B2B SaaS, ads are not the primary resource of the marketing or branding related to that. So it's something to learn, something to consider, and I think for the B2B SaaS, branding is a totally different story. So it was a challenge for me to learn more about that. And in terms of my personal branding and its potential effects on the culture, actually, there is a very I think famous saying of Doug Leone, one of the legendary names of the Sequoia Capital, one of the founders, I would say, or one of the partners currently. You write your mission or you write your values with pen, your strategy with the pencil, meaning that you can always delete your strategy and rewrite it. But for the values, you write it once and then probably it might evolve, but it never changes. It might evolve, of course. But the same for the culture. So it's not like my personal branding has affected the culture. Actually, the culture itself was always there, the values behind this. And in time, actually, me being a woman founder has encouraged our culture to do more things about encouraging other women and women entrepreneurs, women engineers, women coders. And this is also one of the projects of Insider. So I would say the culture itself was there. And the culture itself, again, fed my personal branding in terms of encouraging more women to be an entrepreneur or to be an engineer or to be a developer. So I would say it's like again, culture itself, which made this personal branding. But we have a very interesting, not a strategy, but I'm not sure whether it's a good or bad thing, but we were lack of strategy until now about also my personal branding. We have invested £0 or $0 until now to my personal branding. Even I wasn't using social media. You can't believe that, but I wasn't using social media like Instagram almost like a month ago. I don't know why, but again, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying it because it can be right. It can be done also without using the social media. I don't like to share the things about the personal life, because it's not because that I have a very separate personal life. I'm a huge believer of the life and work integration, and my personal life is my job, and my job is my personal life. But I wasn't sharing this because I was finding it quite, I don't know, ridiculous, I would say. So that's why I wasn't sharing a lot of things on the social media, but I started to share now because the interesting things are happening. And one of the, I think, personal brandings that we have started to do so far was, again, very much related to events. For example, if you allow me, I would like to have a couple of seconds for the promotion of one of our events, I think, which is very important, because we are actually running a new event called Reshape, where we are going to bring all the world's leaders together. And I'm going to have a session with Barack Obama, I think next week on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's going to be like a 1-hour interview, and we are going to have a concept of reshaping the digital industry by bringing all the leaders or the global leaders of the industry together. And we are also going to have a name like Sir Martin Sorrell, the legendary CEO of WPP. and again, both local and global brands, executive level. And so that type of things also has a huge importance on the, building a brand when you are in US, when you are in Europe, and you start to spend some money. But other than that, culture itself always fed my personal branding, although we haven't invested any single dollar on that. Even, for example, I was in the magazines and, in the magazine's cover couple of times, or on the list, because, for example, we have been selected as the top 20 countries in the world, top 20 companies in the world to be watched, B2B SaaS companies in 2021. The big names was there, HubSpot, Salesforce, and Insider was also there. Even for that, we haven't spent any money. So I think especially for the personal side, you can still lean on your own company's branding if you do a lot of things about it. So that's all. I think.
Well, it seems like you say you're not investing, but you really are investing. You're harvesting everything you invested, which is really, in the strategy, in the people, in running the business in such a unique way. And the recognition is putting you in the cover for what you've been able to achieve. So it's an indirect investing. It's not a direct investing, like saying, oh, let me buy this cover, because people don't buy covers.
Yeah.
But the people who are there are probably the ones who deserve it because they did something right? That, but wonderful. I love this name, The Reshape. So let's go back to, you talked about two things, Hande. The first one was the B2B branding dash marketing, which is something very challenging, and I would say even more challenging in the days of COVID, right? Because when you had events suspended, how do you do that? How do you reach those people who are the buyers or the decision makers to buy your business? And then on the second part, you spoke about the personal branding, but let's go back to the first. And I'd ask Ankiti to talk to us about the not just the branding, but how do you sell, or how did you sell during COVID? In addition to taking all these hard measures of, cutting back costs and focusing on the core, how did you sell during COVID? How did you do that?
So I think COVID was a very interesting event. Obviously, it was terrible for the whole world, but I think for most technology companies, what was interesting was that for the first time, we didn't actually have to convince people that digitized way of doing things, especially B2B processes, was the obvious way to go. So for example, in our industry, what happened was that typically when brands source, they want to physically see the factory, physically touch the samples, look at the product, all of that. And then you place the orders, then somebody's literally involved. It's a very physical process. The goods are getting made in China or some other country, it lands, there are customs agents, middlemen, lots of people, and it gets put in a warehouse, and it's just, there's a lot of it's a high touch experience. Now, when COVID started, suddenly a lot of these high touch activities were just not possible, right? So we actually just said that all the businesses that want to source from us, everything, from virtual sampling. You could be sitting at home in Miami and your warehouse could be in FBA facility somewhere in California, and the factory could be in Bangladesh, and the design team sitting somewhere else. We will make sure that you virtually sample all the products, and even the actual physical sample reaches you in Miami. You approve the product, you pick the QC agencies and the compliances that after your approval, the goods would get shipped from Vietnam or Bangladesh or wherever into the facility in California. You don't need to actually step out of your home. And in doing so, actually the digitization, reducing the marketing spend or the branding spend in trying to explain to people why technology was good, it sort of just worked well together. And I think broadly this is true for e-commerce in general, B2B SaaS as well. Everybody, I think just that creating trials became something that a lot of entrepreneurs could take advantage of because of COVID, because the old school traditional way, which is usually the habit that you're trying to break, right, as a founder, as a tech founder, was easier to break, because in many cases, especially like in cases like ours where like physical operations are involved, it was just so difficult to do. So somewhere I think, in the middle of the pandemic, we realized that, listen, this is there is a major opportunity in this adversity, right? And perhaps the kind that we will never get in our careers again. And therefore, we have to find the best tools, the best technology, the best ways to make this as virtual, as simple, and as safe as possible, so that we can actually grow, from this. And obviously all of you will know this, but I think there were companies that lost a lot due to COVID, but there were companies that became super winners because of COVID. And most of the super winners were those that were either tech companies themselves or could leverage technology really well to really look at what is the opportunity and make the best of the opportunity in the midst of this global disastrous adversity. So that was our story. I think we really focused on figuring out a few successes. We started working with some of the top e-commerce companies, some of the companies you've been involved with in the past, to say, how do we create these successful cases for some of these e-commerce companies, some of these brands, direct to consumer brands in that time where, globally the perception was that fashion lifestyle is struggling, but the online guys are actually doing quite well after the initial hit, right? And we said, look, we just need to create successes, make it safe, virtual, and as few middlemen, as few touch points as possible, and then this adversity could become an opportunity for us. So we've really been focused on that for the last 1.5 years.
Got it. When you were speaking, there was this word that was pounding in my head called trust.
Yes.
So how does trust play a role in what you were doing? Maybe you could just finalize telling us how that fits in, and then Vivy could take it on because her personal branding gives trust to consumers to take action. And I just wanted to explore a little bit that the personal branding with trust and how that goes together, how important it is.
So I'll keep this brief. And Veronica, you're exactly right. Trust goes a long way, especially when you're expecting global brands and direct-to-consumer companies to source from some startup in Asia. Not to say startups in Asia are bad, but people don't. It's still up and coming, right? It's not as trusted, as big, or as well understood. And especially when sometimes you fail, sometimes you do badly, it's very tough to build that trust. It's very easy to lose it. I think we've usually just gone and asked for chances, and we've asked for forgiveness when we've gone wrong. And I think in that authenticity or that vulnerability, trust is built. I think trust, in at least in our segment, is rarely built from always trying to convey that everything is okay. So I think vulnerability can be an extraordinary tool to build trust, especially when you can't control everything that's going on around you. Vivy, over to you.
Sorry, I just want to touch on the COVID part, right? Because I think COVID sucks. And being in the fashion industry, I mean, we were affected for sure, right? Who on earth wants to buy clothes now? And a large portion of our sales come from the sale of scarves. So when people are at home, who on earth wants to wear a scarf at home, right? So all our stores had to close, zero offline sales. So I think our saving grace was just that we were very strong on online. 80% of our business is e-commerce, so thank God for that. We developed so many new things, like we push 1-hour deliveries to people. People were tightening their belts, so we actually launched installment plans. We had a concierge service. We cut expenses where we could. We renegotiated with suppliers, and pivoted a chunk of our product plan, less fashion stuff and more home and living and essential stuff. And the most important thing is that the team worked on this fast. Like, they didn't sit around and I just idle to watch, right? We were very transparent with the team. At every town hall, I think we had a bi-weekly town hall for everybody to know our cash balance, our sales target. So I think the team really appreciated that transparency. But I just want to share something. One of our company values is called Bite on Humble Pie. So in everything we do, we think about the community. Everyone was badly hit. People lost jobs. Restaurant businesses had to close down. So we actually used the traffic that came to our website, and the tech team. I'm very proud of them. They set up this thing called FV Bazaar, where food vendors, can actually advertise and sell on our platform as well. So people just order on WhatsApp and they deliver. And we had like 5,000 businesses that listed on our website. And we're a fashion company, right? We have no business selling like food, lasagna, pasta, but we had that, and I think that's one of the most memorable projects ever, for us. We did a lot of fundraising. We raised 5 million ringgit for Malaysia, one of the biggest fundraisers here during COVID. And the stores closed. So my retail team was all at home. But they didn't sit pretty at home. They actually went to volunteer at vaccination centers. And I'm just like, I've never seen this before. This is amazing. And I think it really wasn't about growth for everyone here, for businesses here. It wasn't about growing. It was just survival, and making sure that no one gets left behind. So I'm proud to say that even though we're in the fashion industry, until now, we've had to do 0 retrenchments and 0 salary cuts. So I think it's a testament that you can be hit by anything, but if you can adapt and your business can adapt, you're going to be fine. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And when you talked about transparency, in a way, you were also talking about trust, because you were open to share the results, and therefore you were trusting them, and they were trusting you, that you were sort of all together in the same boat. That's great. Why don't we jump on to talk about the company brand now? We talked a lot about personal brand, and maybe we could get an example of an instance, something that worked and something that didn't work, and how you dealt, because I think we learn a lot from our mistakes, obviously. So if any one of you want to pick up on the branding side of something that you learned, a lesson learned of something that did not work, or maybe a lesson learned of something that did work really well, so that the entrepreneurs listening to us can learn from these experiences.
Maybe I can share one. I definitely suggest entrepreneurs to see, inspiring movies that they can also learn. And I think one of them is a very old movie of Al Pacino called Any Given Sunday. And in this movie, there was a very famous scene talking about acting as a team. And one of the, I think, important taglines from this conversation, or let's say speech, was talking about sometimes being late in life, meaning that you can't catch something, and sometimes being early, meaning that you can't get it because you are early. So I think the branding should be considered in the same way. One of the learnings of mine about branding is, it shouldn't be something that you might consider as a B2B SaaS company, that you might consider that much from the very first day, because as a product company, your product comes first. You should be pretty much concentrated on the product-led growth. And then I think branding should, or marketing itself, even the marketing itself, should follow later. I know that this dimension should be pretty much different for a B2C company. I'm sure that Vivy and Ankiti, they are going to share full different experiences about that. But as a B2B SaaS company, you should be pretty much focused on your product and building a product-led growth machine, and then taking your product into market, and then maybe working on the branding itself. But at the same time, if you are going to very competitive markets like us, to Europe, to UK, France, Spain, or US, Americas, Brazil, like if you have for example, existence also in the US in a very competitive market, then you should also try to or start to invest in your branding quite earlier, even before before going into those markets or from the very first day. So I think the timing of the branding as a B2B SaaS company should be pretty much well arranged. I think as insider, I would say we were a little bit late about building insider's brand. uh, you know uh, from the very first day of some of those competitive markets we start to attack. And the other thing is about the culture and its reflection on the operations or its reflection on the decision. It is a huge, of course, reflection on the decisions, but when most of the time the culture is a reflection of the also co-founders' personalities themselves, at least in the very first days, and then the culture, I think, itself find its own balance or find its own I think evolvement pattern. But we are coming from very humble families, and we are coming also from a very scrappy background, or spending a huge amount of money for a huge event with a high branding volume or branding value was always like a big consideration for us. For example, reshape event now, even when you at that scale, when we are doing this, it's a pretty much expensive, and I am feeling like it's so expensive, should we do that, or should we, it's like it shouldn't be like a consideration at that scale. So I think it must be also, or it might be sometimes a disadvantage to have that type of mentality. So I would definitely suggest that, again, at the right time, again, not from a very first day, but at the right time, you should have your CMO, your CPO, or your C levels, or the other type of critical people, directors, who can bring you more practices about how to build as brand and how much you spend. Otherwise, as a co-founder, you may not be able to give enough importance to build branding around your company.
Got it. Very, very good tips. So the first one is beware the timing, right? Because sometimes you're too early. And second, know your limitations of what you know about branding, really, because depending on what level you're in, you should be spending more. And sometimes we have these biases or this sort of preconceptions of what is expensive or what is not, but maybe it didn't follow the same speed of your growth and of your need. So
yeah, one important addition in here, without taking your time much. For example, I remember the days 2 or 3 years ago, Insider's product was the best in the market, especially the personalization side. And I remember that we have pretty much huge customers, but we didn't have brand knowledge. So this lack of brand knowledge affected us sometimes, losing the RFEs, not because of our product, it was because of the lack of branding or the brand knowledge or brand reputation. And we were a little bit late. So I think it's also an important learning for Insider.
Hande, in that respect, a lot of times, and I've seen that in many cases, the best brand marketing is really done by your own customers. Having customers, testimonials from customers go a very long way. A lot of companies that I've seen start very early on, when they don't have the reputation, or when especially when large corporations are buying from small companies, these small companies are ready to give big discounts or very good deals just to have those large customers on board, to be able to then use them as an example, saying, oh, this blue chip customer buys my product, you can trust buying my product or my service as well. So in your case, I think it would go a long way to just have testimonials from some of these large customers. I was an investor in a company also from an Endeavor entrepreneur called Siga, which is a B2B software business, born in Brazil, but then now they moved to the US because that's where the big customer base is. And, you know, one of the good ways that they used to market themselves, and it was not an easy product to explain all the time, but just by saying, oh, we have ABI InBev as a customer, or Nestle as a customer, or ArcelorMittal as a customer, and this is them talking about us. And so they did a film, a short film, I think it was a 3-minute video of the heads of products or the heads of purchase from the areas where they were being hired, talking about the impact of that product within their businesses. And that like spoke by itself. I think it was the best marketing I've seen. Rather than have the CEO or some specialist speak, oh, these are our features, or we can enhance your results this and this way, you know, having the guy from the company saying, you know, this is how much efficiency we got, and this is this and this is that, that really went a very long way. So very good point, actually.
If I may add on the company branding side, right? I think what didn't work is what doesn't work is basically when you are someone you're not. When you brand yourself or your company something that you're not. I think you can't fake. Yeah, and I mean I visited this company one. They had like values on the board, and then one of it is we're fun, but nobody was smiling. So like I don't think you guys are fun, you know. So I think first as a company and as a brand, you got to define the goal. What is it that you want to do, right? For us, it's we make products, you know. We want to be the largest modest fashion group, so the culture that we have to have is constantly learning and innovating, right? So it took us a while, just like Hande, like it didn't come, like you don't start a company thinking, okay, my branding is going to be this. You know, it's literally, oh, I have this product, let's just jump and do it and everything else later, right? So I work with our people team, craft out this amazing 3 pillars for our team, to promote learning, always about learning and innovating. And the best advocates of your company is your people, so you must invest in them. We have FV Grow, FV Celebrate, FV Cares, and I want to talk a bit about FV Grow, if you don't mind. Like it's so interesting that one of our values is called Be a SpongeBob, which means like we use the cartoon to make it fun, but it basically means keep learning, keep absorbing knowledge, right? So we have these things called SpongeBob sessions, where we go to factories together, we watch masterclass together, we watch documentaries together, we invite speakers, we even have Kit Kat sessions on Fridays where we just chill and there are different topics, and learning from Netflix culture. We also have this thing called 360 feedback, where on our portal we get really brutal, honest feedback from our colleagues. So I think learning is such an important component and a value for any product company.
That's great advice. Fully agree with you on the learning side, and especially because I think for a company, companies need to be humble as a whole, to know that for them to continue to grow, they must be open to learning and adjusting. And companies that suddenly stop learning or stop or think that they're there and that there's nothing to change, that they're perfect, I think that's when they begin to decline. So learning for me is almost goes along with humbleness in that respect. Ankiti, did you want to add anything to that? How do you go about the learning in your company with your employees? How is
I think,
that distributed?
yeah, I absolutely agree with everything that was said. I think the the world around us today is changing so fast that anybody that wakes up in the morning thinking that they're an expert in something and refuses to learn something that day is going to lose a day, because things are moving and happening at such incredible speed around us. We have to constantly have a learning mindset, and constantly learn, because just I think newer and newer, more disruptive things are happening faster and faster. And technology is enabling that, which means that either we can be agents of that change and that innovation, or we risk being disrupted ourselves. So I think that is it's a very real, very real threat to business for companies that are not keeping a learning mindset, or a mindset of evolution, or mindset of changing their principle. Well, I would say their business, or their business model, how they operate, right? Like all these stories we heard about COVID, what happened, the good, the bad, the how people adapted. It all happened because somebody or everybody in these companies had a learning mindset, and instead of saying, listen, what I know is right, they said, let's learn from our surroundings right now and create new innovative solutions that are more applicable to the world that is around us and that is changing so fast. So I think that is incredible. I just want to go back to the point around learning, trust, and company brand. I think like I said, vulnerability, authenticity, all those things really help. Saying that, listen, we made a mistake, or saying that we could have done this better, really helps. But with customers, probably what you said, Veronica, in my experience, because we're at that confluence of B2B commerce and services, is referenceability, right? So I think the moment that we could create that referenceability, especially in with retail and fashion customers, that hey, this brand XYZ could reduce their defect rate by 50%, improve their margins by 10%, became 15% faster when they use digitized sourcing through us. That was a game changer, because other than that, there's some factory somewhere in Asia, in five countries, a lot of people, a lot of the suppliers don't directly speak English, the buyers in the US. So I think just having referenceability helps build trust. If you break it, then if you're authentic and you're vulnerable, you apologize and you make a genuine effort to fix it, then that helps a lot. And then constantly keeping an open mind towards learning and evolving, pivoting if necessary to what is the right answer in a constantly evolving world. I think that helps a lot, in summary of all what we all said.
That's all very good. And if I can add to that, consistency
Yes.
helps build trust. So you can invest directly into your brand through marketing, through sort of promoting your own product. You can get your customers to do it for you and speak how good you are. But then you can only sustain that over time if you have consistency. If you're consistent over time, then that trust is built over a period of time, and you gain that reputation, which is what differentiates you. And then as everybody was adding, if we're a learning type of organization, constantly improving, even better, because I think the customers, they trust that you will be providing something always better for them. So it's almost like they consider, or they don't take for granted that it's something, or they consider that is a given for you, right? That you will be, they know you have a high standard, and that you will be innovating, you will be trying to come up with the best solutions. And at the end of the day, I think that's what strong brands are, right? People know what to expect. And so depending on what area you're in, you're really projecting into the mindset or to the expectations of the customer what they should expect from you. And if you're matching that all the time, they're probably going to be loyal. And if you're frustrating them all the time, they're probably going to leave as customers, right? So That's fantastic. I think we're almost there in terms of we should open for Q&A right now, unless any of you want to add up to what we've been talking about. Maybe we should open to Q&A from the people who are watching us. Let me see if I can go into the chat here and see if there are any questions. I don't see the chat here. Oh, now I do. Yeah, so any questions here? I'm just gonna look. Sorry, I'm not so fast with the process. Is everybody hearing me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. And at the same time, I think the questions are being also shown on the screen. So you can, I think Endeavor team is helping you to find the questions. So that's why I think you can just look at the screen and see the question.
Yeah, so I don't see any questions here.
But it's gone now. It was just...
Okay, while we wait for the questions, let me ask one more here. What is the best piece of advice you think you've been given as a women entrepreneur in leading your business? Either you've been given or that you think you're open to give. I suppose we have a lot of women entrepreneurs here listening to us. And so maybe if each of you could share some good advice, encouraging advice, that would be wonderful.
I think I can share one because I have a very important one shaping my life. And it actually helped me to not to think about being a woman entrepreneur, because it doesn't make any difference, I believe, being a man or woman, not only as an entrepreneur or even in life. I think it doesn't create a difference. Of course, we are all different. We have a different, physical aspects or different point of views. But at the end of the day, we are all human. And I remember the time when I asked one of my mentors, and I think it's very important for you guys also have absolutely a mentor during your journey, or someone you can share. It can be a CO to CO sharing, or it can be a mentorship mentee relationship. And so I asked one of my mentors, very seasoned entrepreneur, I would say, and a great leader, couple of questions about the challenges of being a woman in the tech. And I was talking about, I remember that in a very overwhelmed manner, I was talking about it happened this way, and they did that, blah blah. So I was talking about the story, and he told me that, Hande, you are a very concerned woman, and you shouldn't be. Just perform, anything then will disappear. So just perform, he said. And that become like a principle of my life. When you perform without thinking about being a woman, man, or when you constantly continue to learn, read, learn from the others, learn from the books, and when you work hard, and when you put all of those things together and do your best to perform, and when you perform and when you succeed, it doesn't become like an important to be a woman or man. So I think it become like a gold principle of my life. Just perform.
Just deliver, right? Deliver the results and they will speak for themselves.
Exactly.
Very good. Vivy, did you want to share something in terms of advice for women entrepreneurs?
I think I'll just keep it short, but I think the best advice that I've heard is really don't compare yourself to others. Go at your own pace, and no one's rushing you, and don't try to be someone you're not. So I think transparency, authenticity is very important. In branding to your customers as well. You owe it to them to be authentic. There were a lot of times we tried to follow our competitor strategy, like bigger companies, and we're like, that must be the right way, I'm going to do that. And then it was a disaster because we were not equipped to do it, or we didn't have enough resources to do it, or it just simply wasn't who we were. So just go at your own pace, be true to yourself.
That's very good. I also have some advice to share, but I want to hear Ankiti first.
I'm gonna keep this one really short. So I think the best advice that I got was that, and this does not apply to branding. I think this just generally applies to business principles, that perfect is the enemy of good. So get out there, try and test what you're doing, see if it fails, get feedback, iterate. If you wait for what you think is perfect, it'll be too late. And I've I've genuinely have experienced that a lot. So put something out there, get feedback, learn, iterate, improve it, rather than waiting for perfection. I think that is incredibly important. But I mean, that may not apply to marketing or branding strategies, but more to product and business models. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, in my own experience, especially professionally, because I've been mostly in finance, and finance is also full of men, a little bit similar to Hande. It's just deliver the results and you'll get recognized. But what I can say is that even when we deliver results, in a way, I felt like I had to deliver more results than the average to be recognized. The same way that many times in the boardroom, I say something and then, it gets overlooked and other people say the same and then suddenly, but I just said that. Why am I not being listened to? So the advice I would give is just step forward and speak up. Do not be shy to speak up. Do not be shy to to trust your own capability to deliver incredible results. I think that when women work hard, they can achieve anything, and that's anything really, because we have this capability to multitask and many times be very efficient with use of time. So when Vivy said she has like 3 kids and is going to the 4th and is running a business, I'm like, wow, that's challenging. How do you actually do that? Well, I've done it myself because I also have 3 kids. It's not easy. We make a lot of mistakes, but then you just keep moving, and you keep going and you just get better at it over time. So it's really trust your own capabilities to make it happen. A lot of times I think women also, when it's about on the pay front, they're more shy in terms of asking for more money, and therefore they get paid less than men for doing the same job. So I think women should not be afraid to speak up and ask for their fair value, really, and believe in yourself. So let's see if we have any questions coming up. So here we have 2 questions more on the branding side. So one is, does selecting a company's branding style influenced by the leader's personality preference or the business nature? So the style of the branding, should it reflect the personality or the business itself, if that's the question? Or are there other ways to decide on choosing which branding style fits the company the most? So here it's more, maybe this is more for Vivy. Vivy, how do you separate, and you kind of did that separation, right? How do you separate the branding style from what is you, from what is, a different product? And maybe you could talk about the different brands you have inside, because sometimes what you're selling is not necessarily what you will use or exactly your style, but there's people who can wear it and it's definitely nice. How do you separate that?
Yeah. So I think firstly, branding doesn't come overnight. It's not like, I already know what it's about. It takes time. For us, it took years to find our footing, right? Branding is so unique to each person or each company. So you can't be emulating someone you're not. So learning from the big guys, right? I mean, Reed Hastings, so performance based. So then Netflix has that culture, very performance based. Howard Schultz, such a people person. So Starbucks is very much on customer experience. Steve Jobs, he's obsessed with product. He's super secretive. So Apple's very closed and secretive, right? So it's at some level, I honestly think it's very difficult to separate. Oh, hi, my son. Sorry, I had to push him away. Real mom life. And like Sarah Blakely, someone I really admire as well, full of life and humor. So Spanx is very fun. So like I was saying, I think it's very difficult to separate personal branding of the founder from the brand. Almost impossible, really. So it really depends on the company stand. Are you going to have a face, or are you going to have a faceless image? So if you want to go for the faceless image, the founders got to step away a little bit and let the company speak for itself, right, via different programs or events. So first, I think knowing what you want. A lot of the trend now that I see, companies are desperately wanting faces to represent their company. People want to see human in brands. They want to see,
Yeah.
they want brands that are more humanized now. So you see brands getting influencers on to become their board of director. I would encourage having personal branding to a brand. As for my different brands, the values don't change. So modest fashion, innovative products, creative collaborations, and you see that through every single one of my brands. The demographics and target market and the way of marketing might change, but I think the values, the bigger values, remain the same.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So to close this, because we have another 2 minutes, I wanted each of you to choose 3 brands that you really admire and tell everybody why. So let's go for a round here. Hande, you start.
Thank you for making me the first one. Okay, so if we are in a except insider, if we are like in a fashion show, I say fashion show because both FashionValet and Zilingo they are into the fashion, of course. I would say I like really Burberry as a first brand. Well, the simplicity, but the charisma and sophistication in this simplicity, I think makes the brand itself very special. Um, as a tech brand, actually, it is a brand at the end of the day. I like WhatsApp. One of my very favorite questions to interviews of the product managers: what would you change in a product if you would be the product manager of this, tool? And most of the time, there are not many changes for WhatsApp because it's simple, very easy, very well done. I think UX and UI. So I like that. And as the third one, I would say, I think is the social media tool. Instagram made a huge difference and impact on the utilization of the tool and the UI itself. This swipe thing and swiping between the photos and etc. It made it like a pretty much I think commonly used social media tool and made it like a very big, huge, important part of the people's lives. Those are the 3 brands coming to my mind nowadays, but of course it might be changed because tech is changing. It's the most progressive industry of the world, so that's why it might be changed in even a couple of weeks, but this is those are the ones today.
Cool. Ankiti.
Okay, so I'll go next. I think the first one that comes to mind is Bumble, the dating app. I think they've done an incredible job of empowering women to make the first move, and I think they always come across as a very authentically sort of brand that authentically cares about women, and their safety and women's issues, and you always see them sort of on the right side of this. So I think first is Bumble. Second for me would be Netflix. I think incredible brand, really follows through. Vivy spoke about them as well, right? I think the culture, the performance, everything, but how the product speaks to the customer is also very, it's consistent, but it's innovative. It's constantly changing. They're pushing the boundaries, trying new stuff, but at the same time, I think the relationship, Netflix and chill, it's become more of a habit for us. And there are incredible other streaming services, but I think Netflix has an incredible brand. And the third one, actually, I was very close to saying Instagram also, but since Hande already said Instagram, and I love Instagram, I'm a big fan, I'm going to pick one other one, which is also, I'm a huge Rihanna fan. So I think, in the fashion beauty space, I would say Fenty. I think in our world it means a huge thing, because Fenty, they call it the Fenty effect. Foundation was always meant for women with lighter skin tones, and with Rihanna and the way she sort of revolutionized everything, now there are 45 shades of foundation. And I know it's just it seems like a small thing amongst so many big things, but a multi-billion-dollar giant creating this level of inclusion for people all over the world is, I think, an incredible brand story. So I think Rihanna and Fenty would be my third one.
Very cool. Vivy.
For me, the first one would be Nike. I admire them for their, constant innovation, their bravery to take a stand, courage, and their clever marketing. Second one, don't laugh, but Kim Kardashian. As a brand, minus the scandals, I actually really admire her for putting her life out there and taking so much hate from people on a daily basis on social media, being cyberbullied daily, at the same time growing killer businesses, right? So I don't think she's as bimbotic as people would like to perceive her. And lastly, Apple. I admire their product obsession, their innovation, and how they actually grew through Steve Jobs passing. So they transcended beyond personal branding. That's a pretty strong brand, definitely, with 1 trillion market cap. That's really cool. That's where I want to be.
Okay. Thank you. That was wonderful. I need to wrap up. I'd love to stay more and ask about, okay, what is your personality branding that you admire and so forth, but we'll leave this for another time. It was really wonderful to have the three of you here in this panel. Really, really fun. And I hope to see you all again soon. Thanks for everybody who was following us. I think we have over 400 entrepreneurs. Thanks for Endeavor from the APAC region. There were several offices involved, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and I think even Japan, and soon to come Singapore. So congratulations, Endeavor, for putting such a great event together. And I hope to see everybody very soon. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention Vietnam. We also have Vietnam. So amazing, amazing. I hope to see everybody very soon. If not online, in person, maybe in one of the Endeavor events. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much for the successful moderation, Veronica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
And
Bye.